US President Donald Trump recently crossed the 100-day mark. Decisions here in Washington, D.C. by the administration have had far-reaching consequences on people across the world, including those in Tibet. The president of the Tibetan government in exile is in D.C. meeting with Trump officials. He joins us now to talk about his high-stakes trip to the United States. Thank you very much indeed, Sikyong Penpa Tsering, for speaking to NDTV.
Thank you for having me.
Sikyong Tsering, let's start by talking about the massive overhaul at the US State Department, a key diplomatic position that advocates for Tibetan issues and rights, the role of special coordinator. Has it been axed in this restructuring? What exactly do we know has happened to that role, that position?
We have been watching the developments in the State Department for some time. So there is still no clarity as to where or who will be appointed as the coordinator for Tibetan issues. We're still trying to figure out and to also see what are the possibilities that we can reach out to the State Department, because this is a statutory congressional decision, which we believe the State Department should be honoring that, but now we'll have to see how it evolves.
Well, the problem is with the Trump administration, they've often ignored those congressional decisions. But just getting back to what you were saying, so you do believe that this position of special coordinator will continue to exist in some form, but you're not sure as of now in what form it might be? That's
right. We still are trying to figure out as to which or what we can recommend to the State or what the State Department is thinking, because right now it's difficult to access top leadership in the State Department to get and nobody else has a clear answer as to how it's going to shape up.
I noticed you mentioned how you've been knocking on doors, but have you been able to get very far?
See, with the new administration, there are a lot of new people in the administration. So people with whom we have been working over the years, including Secretary Rubio when he was a senator.
Who's been quite supportive of the Tibet cause before?
Yes, so in that sense, I wrote to Secretary Rubio on February 27th, and he replied to me on 10th March, and that letter was quite reassuring, reiterating US support for Tibet. And regarding the funding cuts, I'm sure you have another question for that, but I think there is this general belief that Tibet program should be in the interests of United States, and we also have very good bipartisan support in the Congress, and that is what we have been doing in the last few days, meeting with congressional leaders both in the Senate and the House to impress upon the State Department to restore the funding back.
Let's talk more about that funding, USAID. For decades now, it's helped Tibetans in exile in India with various programs, whether it's hospital equipment, computers for kids in school, meal programs. Give us a sense of how those funding cuts have affected Tibetans in exile in India.
Of course, this is a privilege for the Tibetans. We will always be grateful to the United States government and the people for their support through the decades. Now, out of the 12 million
from USAID,
7 million is for Tibetan Resilience Program, which includes education and health and rehabilitation. Then there is another 3 million, which is meant for capacity building of the Central Tibetan Administration. And then there is another 2 million for digitization of Tibetan scriptures.
Sikyong Tsering, as far as the 12 million goes from USAID, has that annual funding now ceased?
As of now, it's ceased, but now that I'm here in Washington, D.C., meeting with people in the Congress and also with the administration, so there may still be a little leeway to maneuver if the administration is really keen to get it back on track.
The argument goes that America should watch out for Americans first, and therefore you do not need to be spending millions of dollars every year for causes like Tibet. There's a group of Americans who believe that. What do you have to say to them?
Anything that happens in one part of the world will have its impact on others. And right now the reality is that China is United States' biggest challenge. And we believe that supporting Tibet is not just giving freebies to the Tibetans, but a good investment in terms of benefit of America's security and its cooperation with other countries. Yeah. The fact that the relationship between India and US cooperation, strategic cooperation is increasing, and that also has its connotations on Tibet and security issues, because then India-China relations also come into being. So there are so many elements that are connected to each other.
In recent days, you visited the Office of Radio Free Asia, which has been a critical information lifeline to Tibetans in Tibet. How important has that service been for Tibetans? And considering now that the Trump administration has cut back on funding, Radio Free Asia could go quiet in just a matter of weeks. Can you explain to Americans and people why that was such an integral service? Why is Radio Free Asia so important to Tibet?
Now, what we hear from inside Tibet is, since the broadcasts have come down, one common message is that we are not getting our morning tea. So these are the only few outlets for Tibetans inside Tibet to get an understanding of what is happening internationally, what is happening to the Tibetan cause in the outside world. So that gives them good feedback on how Tibet's issue is faring internationally and how they should be responding to the situation internationally. Because in China, there are no other means of communicating with the people inside. So that is why it's like a lifeline.
A lifeline is what you say. There are Americans who turn around and say that with the Chinese firewall, there's really no way of knowing how many people are actually listening to Radio Free Asia. So again, why spend our tax dollars on something that we don't know if it's really working? What do you say?
Even China uses a lot of jammers to stop all these broadcasts, but they were not successful. So it depends, because Tibet is very vast. It's 2.5 million square kilometers. And Chinese government cannot put jammers in all the places all over Tibet. So there are places where you can have access to broadcasts like Voice of America and Radio Free Asia. But then if one person hears the news, then it could go to many people amongst themselves, within themselves. But then we know for a fact that whatever is happening outside of Tibet, news does get through inside Tibet, and they do know what is happening. So that is what is more important instead of numbers.
How do you feel going into these meetings with Trump officials? Because previously, in 2020, for example, Trump signed an act that strengthened the US position on Tibet. But this time around, we're seeing cuts as far as USAID goes. We're seeing cuts for Radio Free Asia. We don't know what's happening with the special coordinator as well. Do you feel a bit more apprehensive this time around as far as Trump 2.0 goes?
I think it's still early to pass any judgment. Of course, the speed and all this during President Trump's in the first 100 days, sometimes difficult to track also as to what's happening.
But has it been tough this time around on this trip, the first time that you're meeting the administration after the re-election?
In the Congress, it's not a problem to meet with our friends both in the Senate and the Congress, in the House. But with the administration, when you have too many new people, then it's difficult to gain access, because you have to build these relations over years, with the people who are in the administration. So it does contribute to some apprehension, but as Buddhists, so we learn to maintain equanimity under these circumstances and not get fired up or tense or get stressed and all that. It doesn't help.
Let's talk about how you've been dealing with the Chinese government. Are backroom negotiations or back-channel negotiations still continuing? I know every time you say that, yes, they are continuing, Beijing comes out and says, no, that's untrue. But what's the status of those talks behind the scenes?
Talks. I have always been saying, if you look at what President Xi Jinping is doing in the whole of China and more particularly in Tibet, Uyghur and Mongol areas, then it doesn't look like there could be any common ground, even if we manage to re-establish contact with the Chinese government.
But are those meetings continuing?
Yes.
What are those meetings like? I'm trying to picture in my mind's eye. Is it over the phone, Zoom?
No, there are personal meetings also. So it's right now it's more like they are trying to understand what we are thinking, and they also want to know what's happening with His Holiness and his age and health and all that, because their major concern is reincarnation of His Holiness and the succession plan. So they might like to know more about those things.
Is there any chance of you going to Tibet? I know you've never been to Tibet, or for that matter, has this ever come up with the Dalai Lama potentially visiting Tibet as well, because he's 90, going to be turning 90 very soon in a few months. Does that come up in conversation?
No, His Holiness has expressed his wish to visit Tibet many times in the past. But then again, is there the opportunity or not?
Is there? Right now, no.
So everything is conditional. So when China says His Holiness is welcome to come back to Tibet, and then they also say he should stay back for good. And His Holiness was very categorical that if I get to go to Tibet, I'll go, but I'll not stay there because there's no freedom there.
Let's talk about the middle path. The Dalai Lama has talked about the middle path. You've also advocated for it. It does not mean complete independence for Tibet, but greater autonomy. I'm trying to understand what that would look like. What's the closest example you can give us? Is it like a Hong Kong? Is it more like a perhaps Scotland?
You have so many autonomous arrangements around this world, and we have studied many of the autonomous arrangements. You mentioned Scotland. Scotland is also one of the examples of devolution of power, but I would rather prefer South Tyrol as an example. We have worked with South Tyrol for many years. The central government is happy, the state government is happy. There are additional support for the autonomous regions.
It's very difficult to fathom how that would work in the Chinese context. So you as president of the autonomous region, working with the Chinese government and Xi Jinping, how would that really pan out?
So all these are something that we have to see in the aftermath of arrangement. If there is a possible solution for autonomy for Tibet, real autonomy, genuine autonomy for Tibet, would be decided at that time when you have to negotiate about power sharing and what kind of power sharing will happen, who has the upper hand.
China has said that it will pick the next successor to the Dalai Lama. It could be a very real possibility that they will in fact do that. Does it worry you that at some level there will be a generation, not now, but a generation that will grow up in future that will in fact believe that the Dalai Lama appointed by Beijing is the true and right one?
A devout Buddhist practitioner will never accept that, because we all know the system of reincarnation is very unique to Tibetan Buddhism. You have so many Buddhist countries in this world, but the reincarnation is very unique to Tibetans. And the whole idea of reincarnation is for that person, in this case His Holiness the Dalai Lama, to be reborn. So again, it's the person who's going to decide where he will be born or she will be born. It's not the communist government.
The Dalai Lama, he said that, like you mentioned, the next successor or the next reincarnation will come from the free world. It could well be a woman. It could also be an appointment could also be made before the Dalai Lama passes away. Is there any status update on that? I know there was talk of perhaps making some kind of statement during his birthday, with his 90th birthday, which is in July.
Yes, so the only document that is available on His Holiness reincarnation is the September 2011 document, in which he talks about when His Holiness reaches the age of 90, he would make some statement. And that's now only a few months down the line.
What are we expected to hear?
So we will be holding a conference of all the religious heads of Tibetan Buddhism in Dharamsala from July 2nd to 4th. And we are hoping that His Holiness will address this conference.
Is it going to be a decision?
That I'm not sure, because that has to come from His Holiness. So
it could be.
No, it could be. He may make a statement. Earlier, I even used to say, even today, His Holiness keeps reassuring us that he will live up to 113 years of age, or another more than 2 decades. So we believe that this Dalai Lama will live very long.
But if I've understood you correctly, that this statement coming in July could be anything, but could also include a perhaps decision on who his successor might be.
You mentioned about all the things, emanation and all the things, but from the latest book of His Holiness, Voice for the Voiceless, I think the indication is more towards reincarnation. That means finding a soul boy after the 14th Dalai Lama. Emanation is appointing somebody before your demise. That I'm not sure. So I have been saying, even at 90, if His Holiness feels very good, he might say it's too early to make a statement. So it's only a few months down the line, so let's wait for that and see what His Holiness has to say in July.
And do we know which countries from the free world?
That His Holiness has to decide. Sometimes I tell governments that if His Holiness is born in your country, then His Holiness becomes your citizen. So you should be thinking more about how to handle these kind of situations in the future as well.
When was the last time you met the Dalai Lama, and how is his health?
Oh, His Holiness is doing very good. Last year, he was, as you know, he was here in the United States for his right knee surgery, and since then his health has been improving. But you can't expect too much, because His Holiness is 90 now. So his engagement right now, every Monday, every Wednesday, every Friday, he meets with more than 400, 500 people every single day on those 3 days. So he keeps himself very engaged with the public. That's his nature.
There's lots happening in this world right now. The war in Ukraine, Gaza, Israel. We have India and Pakistan staring at each other with a possible war as well, hopefully not. What is it that concerns the Dalai Lama at this point in time most?
His Holiness has always said, I am a messenger of Indian wisdom, as son of Indian soil, the son of India. So His Holiness has always professed on compassion, karuna, ahimsa, non-violence. So these are values born out of ancient Indian wisdom, which is very, very relevant today. As we speak, we are talking about, some are saying 54 violent conflicts around the world, some are saying 100 violent conflicts going around the world.
But is there any one of them that really concerns him right now?
There's so many things happening, and His Holiness is not able to travel as much as he used to do before. So only he can express his wish for a more peaceful world.
The situation between India and Pakistan is extremely tense after the terror attack in Kashmir. Pakistan shares close ties with China. What do you think China's role will be in making sure that Pakistan exercises caution, also given that Beijing and New Delhi are seeing warmer ties in the recent past?
Would that be in China's interest or not? Because if it is not in China's interest, they won't do it. And we all know China-Pakistan relation, China-Russia relation. In China-Pakistan relation, they always define as higher than the mountains, sky, deeper than the ocean, sweeter than honey. And this will not go away in 1 or 2 days or because of 1 or 2 incidents. Now, if China wants to prove its commitment, then they should be saying what you are saying right now.
Sikyong Penpa Tsering, appreciate your time here on NDTV.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.